Hello again, we are glad to welcome you to our channel. Today we present to your attention the fairy tale of the Wizard of the Emerald City.
Part 1. The Cyclone in the Land of Magic. The wind on the Kansas prairie could be gentle and sweet, blowing softly over the endless fields of dry grass. But sometimes it came like a living creature, wild, angry, and unstoppable. On one of those days, the sky darkened, the air grew heavy, and a strange silence fell over the land. Even the hens stopped clucking, and the grass seemed to crouch against the ground, waiting. Inside a small gray farmhouse stood a little girl named Ellie, watching the horizon through a dusty window. She was about 7 years old, with bright blue eyes and golden hair braided neatly down her back. Life on the prairie was lonely and colorless, but Ellie's laughter and curiosity filled the house with light. Her best friend was her tiny black dog Totoshka, who never left her side. Together, they turned the gray world into something alive. "Ellie," called Aunt Em, her voice trembling slightly, "the sky looks bad. Go find your uncle. We must get to the cellar before the cyclone comes." The word cyclone made Ellie's heart jump. She had seen many storms, but never one so terrible as this. The wind had started to howl, rattling the thin walls of their home. Dust swept in through every crack. Ellie scooped up Totoshka, but before she could reach the cellar door, a mighty roar came from outside, a sound like thunder, but longer, deeper, angrier. The world began to spin. The floor trembled. The walls groaned. Ellie fell to her knees, holding Totoshka tightly. Then, suddenly, the whole house lifted off the ground. It whirled up into the sky like a leaf in the wind. The girl screamed, but her voice was swallowed by the storm. For what felt like hours, the house spun and rocked. Ellie could see flashes of light through the cracks, gray clouds, flying branches, swirling dust. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, everything went quiet. The house stopped moving. There was no more wind, no thunder, no noise at all. Only silence. Ellie stood up slowly, still holding Totoshka. "I think it's over," she whispered. She walked to the door, opened it, and gasped. Before her stretched the most beautiful land she had ever seen. The air was warm and sweet, full of scents she couldn't name. The sky was bluer than she had ever imagined, and the grass shone green like emeralds. Bright flowers covered the ground, and strange little birds with jeweled wings darted through the air. Everything sparkled with color and life. "Oh, Totoshka!" Ellie cried. "We're not in Kansas anymore." A group of tiny people was walking toward her. They were dressed in blue clothes and hats decorated with silver. Their faces were kind, though their eyes were wide with wonder. At the front of the group walked a woman wearing a tall white hat and holding a staff made of crystal. When they reached Ellie, the little people bowed low, and the woman said in a soft, musical voice, "Welcome, noble sorceress. You have freed our land from the wicked witch of the East." Ellie blinked. "I'm sorry? I don't understand." "I'm not a sorceress. I'm just a girl." The woman smiled gently. "Your house fell from the sky and crushed the wicked witch. Look, there are her silver shoes." Ellie turned and saw, just beneath the corner of her little gray house, a pair of shining shoes with pointed toes and glittering heels. Beside them was nothing but a dark mark on the grass. A shiver ran down her spine. "You mean I killed her?" Ellie whispered. "By accident," said the woman. "But you need not fear. You have done a great service to the people of the Blue Land. I am the Good Witch of the North, and I welcome you to the land of magic." The Munchkins, as Ellie later learned they were called, clapped their hands and began to sing joyfully. They brought her fruit and flowers and thanked her again and again for freeing them. But Ellie's heart was heavy. She wanted to go home. "Please," she said to the Good Witch, "can you help me get back to my aunt and uncle in Kansas?" The witch's eyes filled with kindness. "There is only one who might help you, the great wizard of the Emerald City. He rules from the heart of this land and is said to grant any wish. Follow the yellow brick road, and it will lead you to him. Take the silver shoes, child." They are magical and will protect you." Ellie bent down, put on the sparkling shoes, and felt a strange warmth spread through her. She thanked the witch, said goodbye to the Munchkins, and started down the golden path with Totoshka trotting beside her. The road wound through fields of flowers and soft green hills. The sun shone brightly, and Ellie began to feel braver. She sang to Totoshka, and her voice echoed cheerfully. But after some miles, the path passed through a great field of tall corn. In the middle of it stood a scarecrow, his body made of straw, his face painted with cheerful eyes and a red smile. He was propped up on a stick, arms outstretched. Ellie stopped and looked at him curiously. "Good day," she said politely. "You look very lifelike." "Thank you," said the scarecrow suddenly, and Ellie nearly jumped out of her shoes. "You can talk," she gasped. "Of course I can," said the scarecrow with a friendly grin. "I don't have a brain, but I can still speak." Ellie laughed in surprise. "No brain? Then how can you talk?" "I don't know," he admitted. "That's the trouble. I can talk and walk and think a little, but not properly. The crows don't fear me because I'm too stupid to scare them. If I only had brains, I'd be as wise as anyone." Ellie felt sorry for him. "Well, I'm going to the Emerald City to ask the wizard to send me home. Maybe he can give you a brain." "Do you think he would?" asked the scarecrow eagerly. "I'm sure he would," said Ellie. "Come with me." So the scarecrow climbed down from his pole, shook out his straw, and joined the little girl and her dog on the road. He walked a bit stiffly at first, but soon he was laughing and talking happily. "I may not have brains," he said, "but I can tell a joke or two." Ellie giggled. "That's good enough for me." As the sun began to set, the three travelers found a soft patch of grass beside the road. Ellie ate some bread she had brought from home, shared a piece with Totoshka, and offered the scarecrow a bite out of politeness. "No, thank you," he said, smiling. "I never get hungry. It's one of the advantages of being stuffed with straw." Ellie smiled sleepily. "I wish I were made of straw, too. Then I wouldn't have to eat or sleep." "Then you wouldn't dream," said the scarecrow softly, looking up at the stars. Ellie thought about that for a moment before falling asleep under the warm night sky, the silver shoes glowing faintly in the starlight. Part 2: The Tin Woodman and the Cowardly Lion. When morning came, the first light of dawn painted the sky rose and gold. Ellie awoke to the cheerful sound of birds singing in the trees. Totoshka barked happily, chasing butterflies through the tall grass. The scarecrow stood motionless beside the road, watching the sunrise with the expression of someone who was trying very hard to think. "Good morning," Ellie said, rubbing her eyes. "Did you sleep well?" "I don't sleep at all," said the scarecrow, "but I spent the night wondering how wonderful it must be to have a brain. Imagine being able to think of everything at once. I'd be so clever that all the crows would come to ask me questions." Ellie smiled. "Maybe you'll get your brain soon. The wizard will help you, I'm sure." Together, they continued along the yellow brick road. The golden tiles glimmered under the sun, winding between meadows and groves of trees. The air smelled sweet, and for a while the journey felt peaceful. But the path soon led them into a dark forest, where the sunlight barely reached the ground. The wind was cold, and the trees whispered with strange, rustling voices. Totoshka whimpered. "Don't be afraid," said Ellie, holding him close. "We'll be fine." "I'm not afraid," said the scarecrow bravely. "But if I had a brain, I'd know whether this forest is safe or not." They hadn't gone far when they heard a strange metallic sound, a faint clink, clink, clink coming from among the trees. "What's that noise?" Ellie whispered. "Let's find out," said the scarecrow, and together they followed the sound. Soon they came upon a figure standing completely still in a small clearing. It was a man made entirely of tin, holding an axe in mid-swing. He was frozen in place, his joints stiff with rust. Ellie gasped. "Oh, poor man, he can't move." Beside him lay a small oil can half buried in leaves. The scarecrow picked it up. Maybe this will help, he said, reading the faded letters on the can. Oil. Ellie unscrewed the top and poured a few drops on the Tin Woodman's neck. There was a faint creak, then another. Please, came a weak, rusty voice. Oil my arms, and my legs too, if you don't mind. Ellie did so carefully, rubbing the joints until the metal gleamed. The Tin Woodman stretched his limbs slowly, testing them, then smiled, a bright, shining smile that reflected the sunlight. Ah, he said with relief, that feels wonderful. I thought I'd stand there forever. What happened to you? Asked Ellie. It's a sad story, the Tin Woodman replied. Once, long ago, I was a real man. I lived in this very forest and worked as a woodcutter. I loved a kind and beautiful girl, but her guardian, the Wicked Witch of the East, hated happiness. She enchanted my axe, and one by one it cut off my arms, my legs, and finally my body. Each time I replaced the lost part with tin until I was all metal. But then the witch laughed and said, Now you have no heart, so you cannot love. And she was right. My heart was gone. Ellie's eyes filled with tears. That's terrible. It is, said the Tin Woodman sadly. If I had a heart, I would cry too, but I feel nothing at all. Sometimes I wish I could love again. Then come with us, said the Scarecrow eagerly. We're going to the Emerald City. The wizard will give me a brain, and he can give you a heart. You think so? Said the Tin Woodman hopefully. I'm sure of it, said Ellie. He's very powerful. The Tin Woodman smiled again. Then I will come. Perhaps I shall find my happiness at last. He polished his axe, slung it over his shoulder, and joined the little group. As they walked, he proved gentle and polite, always ready to help Ellie over a stone or carry her basket when she grew tired. The Scarecrow admired him greatly. You may not have a heart, he said, but you're the kindest person I've met. That's because I have no heart to be cruel with, said the woodman, half smiling. The forest grew darker as they went, and the path twisted among thick roots. Sometimes they heard growls and rustles in the shadows. What kind of animals live here? Ellie whispered nervously. Probably lions and tigers and bears, said the Scarecrow in an uncertain voice. Oh my, cried Ellie. Just then a terrible roar shook the forest. A huge golden lion leapt onto the path before them, his eyes blazing and his mane wild. Totoshka barked furiously, but Ellie clutched him to her chest. The lion growled, showing his great teeth. Who dares enter my forest? Please don't eat us, Ellie cried. The lion looked surprised. Eat you? I might if I weren't so scared. Scared? Said the Scarecrow, blinking. But you're a lion. Yes, the lion sighed. And that's the worst of it. Everyone expects me to be brave because I'm supposed to be the king of beasts. But the truth is, I'm a coward. I roar loudly to frighten others before they can frighten me. I've been ashamed all my life. Ellie stepped forward gently. You seem brave to me. You came out of nowhere and roared like thunder. That's just habit, said the lion gloomily. Inside, my heart pounds like a drum. If I only had courage, I'd be the happiest creature alive. Then come with us, said the Tin Woodman warmly. We're going to the Wizard of the Emerald City. He's wise and mighty. He will give me a heart, the Scarecrow a brain, and perhaps he will give you courage. The lion's eyes brightened. Do you think he could? I'm sure of it, Ellie said with conviction. Then I'll come, said the lion, shaking his mane. And maybe along the way I can still protect you, even if I'm scared. From that day on, the four travelers and little Totoshka went together. The Scarecrow walked lightly, always curious. The Tin Woodman marched steadily, his joints gleaming. The lion padded softly beside them, watching the shadows with cautious eyes. Ellie felt safer than ever before. They were a strange company, but a loyal one. As they journeyed, they faced many trials. Once the path ended at a wide river with no bridge. The current was fast and dangerous. The lion hesitated, his tail twitching. I can swim, he said nervously, but I'm afraid of the deep water. You're brave enough, said Ellie gently. Just try. They worked together. The Scarecrow found long logs, the Tin Woodman built a raft, and the lion pushed it into the river with his strong paws. The crossing was difficult. The current spun them around and water splashed into the raft, but they held on to one another. When they finally reached the other side, soaked and tired, Ellie hugged them all. "You see," she said, "we did it because we helped each other." The lion smiled shyly. "Maybe courage is not about never being afraid," he said. "Maybe it's about doing what's right even when you are." "Then you already have courage," said the Scarecrow wisely. The lion looked down at him. "And maybe you already have brains." They all laughed, and even Totoshka barked happily. The golden road stretched on ahead, shining between the trees like a promise. Part 3. The Emerald City and the Wicked Witch's Task. After many days of travel, the golden road finally led them out of the dark forest and into open rolling plains. The grass shimmered in the sunlight, and in the distance, beyond the silver hills, they could see a faint green glow on the horizon. "That must be it," cried Ellie joyfully. "The Emerald City." The Scarecrow clapped his straw hands. "At last! I can almost feel my brain already." "And I can almost feel my heart beating," said the Tin Woodman, smiling. The lion's tail flicked nervously, but he smiled too. "And maybe soon I'll roar without trembling inside." Totoshka barked as if agreeing with them all, and the group hurried forward. The closer they came, the brighter the green light became, until it seemed to bathe the whole sky in its glow. Soon they reached the tall, shining walls of the Emerald City, which glittered like 1,000 jewels. Each brick sparkled with green fire, and the towers shimmered like crystal in the sun. At the great gate stood a guardian, dressed in a long emerald robe and wearing enormous green spectacles. "Who comes to the Emerald City?" he asked solemnly. "We've come to see the great wizard," said Ellie politely. "We have important requests." The guardian frowned. "No one may enter unless they wear these," he said, handing each of them a pair of green glasses with golden rims. "The brightness of the city would blind your eyes." Ellie put hers on and gasped. The entire city blazed with color, streets of gleaming emerald, houses with green roofs, fountains of green water. Even the people were dressed in every shade of green imaginable. They smiled kindly as Ellie and her friends passed, though everyone whispered in awe, for it was rare to see strangers in the Emerald City. They were led through wide avenues until they reached a grand palace made entirely of polished emerald and silver. The Scarecrow whispered, "Do you think he's really as great as they say?" "He must be," said Ellie, her heart fluttering. Inside, everything shone with so much light that Ellie almost forgot to breathe. At last, they were brought before the throne room, whose doors were carved with images of stars and lions. The guardian bowed and said, "The wizard will receive you, one at a time." Ellie was the first to enter. The hall was vast and silent. Pillars of crystal rose to the ceiling, and in the middle of the room stood a giant throne made of emeralds. Upon it sat a woman, beautiful and terrible, her dress sparkling like green fire. Her eyes seemed to look straight into Ellie's heart. "I am Oz, the great and terrible," said the woman in a voice that echoed through the hall. "Who are you, and why do you seek me?" Ellie trembled. "I am Ellie from Kansas. I wish to go home, but I don't know how." The figure on the throne leaned forward. "Why should I help you, little girl?" "Because everyone says you can do anything," Ellie whispered. "Please, I've come a long way." The wizard's voice softened slightly. "Perhaps I could, but first you must do something for me." Ellie's heart sank. "What is it?" "You must destroy the Wicked Witch of the West. Until she is gone, my magic cannot help you." Ellie gasped. "But I'm just a child. I can't fight witches." "Everyone must earn what they desire," said Oz coldly. "Now go." Before Ellie could answer, a gust of wind swept through the room, and the image of the woman vanished. The hall was empty. Only the echo of the wizard's voice remained. One by one, her friends entered the throne room, and each saw something different. To the Scarecrow, The wizard appeared as a wise man with a long beard and eyes like stars. To the Tin Woodman, he appeared as a monstrous beast with iron claws. To the lion, he was a blazing ball of fire that filled the hall with heat. But to each of them, Oz gave the same answer: destroy the Wicked Witch of the West, and I will grant your wish. When they met again outside the palace, Ellie told them what had happened. The others nodded sadly. They had heard the same. So we must go west, said the Scarecrow, even if we're not ready. I don't like fighting, said the Tin Woodman softly, but I'll protect you, Ellie, and I'll try not to be afraid, said the Lion. So they set out once more, following a road that led away from the shining city and into the dark, gray lands of the West. The further they went, the gloomier the world became. The grass turned brown, the trees twisted into strange shapes, and the sky grew heavy with clouds. No birds sang here. The very air felt thick with wickedness. Now I understand why she's called the Wicked Witch, whispered Ellie. The Witch of the West lived in a gloomy stone castle, surrounded by fields of thorns and black flowers. She watched the travelers through her magic mirror and laughed cruelly. So, the wizard sends children and fools against me? Very well, let them come. I'll destroy them before they reach my gate. That night, when the travelers camped near a dead tree, the witch sent her first army, a pack of wild wolves. Their eyes glowed red as they crept through the darkness. But the Scarecrow was awake, listening to the wind. They're coming, he warned. Quick, Tin Woodman, get your axe ready. When the wolves charged, the Tin Woodman stood firm, his axe flashing in the moonlight. One by one he struck them down until none remained. He wiped the blade and said quietly, I hate to hurt living things, but they would have killed us. The next day the witch sent her crows, black and cruel. Peck out their eyes, she screamed. But the Scarecrow waved his arms and laughed. Come at me, brothers of straw! The crows dived, and he caught them, breaking their wings until they fled in fear. Then the witch sent her bees, a golden storm that buzzed like thunder. The Scarecrow whispered, Cover me! And the Tin Woodman carefully pulled out his straw stuffing, covering Ellie and the Lion with it. The bees stung the Tin Woodman's metal body in vain until they all fell dead from exhaustion. But the witch was not done. Her face twisted with rage. You've defeated my wolves, my crows, my bees, but you will not escape my magic. She took out a golden cap and shouted strange words. A whirlwind rose in the air, and from it descended her most terrible servants, the winged monkeys. The monkeys swept down like a storm. They tore the Scarecrow's straw from his body and scattered it to the wind. They dented the Tin Woodman's body and threw him into a ravine. They tied the Lion in chains and carried Ellie to the witch's castle. When the witch saw the little girl, she laughed cruelly. So you are the one they call the sorceress? You don't look dangerous. I'm not, said Ellie softly. Please let my friends go. You'll stay here and serve me instead, said the witch, and perhaps I'll keep you alive. Those silver shoes on your feet, they are powerful. Someday I'll have them for myself. Ellie held Tatoshka tightly, her heart pounding. You'll never get them. The witch's green eyes glittered. We shall see. And thus began Ellie's captivity in the castle of the Wicked Witch of the West, a place where no laughter lived, and every shadow whispered secrets of fear. Part Chipur, The Fall of the Wicked Witch and the Secret of the Wizard. The days passed slowly in the castle of the Wicked Witch. The sky above it was always gray, and the wind carried the smell of smoke and iron. Ellie worked from morning till night, scrubbing floors, carrying water, cleaning cauldrons. The witch never allowed her to rest for long, but Ellie bore everything patiently. She believed that if she kept faith and courage, somehow she would find a way to escape. The witch watched her constantly, searching for a moment to seize the silver shoes. She could feel their power, shimmering with magic older than her own. But the shoes never left Ellie's feet, not even when she slept. And something about the girl, her innocence, Her quiet determination made even the witch hesitate. Totoshka, though small, was a fierce protector. He growled whenever the witch came near Ellie, and once he even bit her on the leg. The witch shrieked in fury, but she dared not harm the dog. Some instinct told her that the shoe's power might avenge any cruelty. "You wicked little creature," she hissed one morning. "If you weren't under her protection, I'd turn you into a lump of coal." Totoshka barked defiantly, and Ellie smiled faintly. "He's not wicked," she said. "He's just brave." "Brave," the witch sneered. "There's no bravery here. Not in this land, not in you. Soon you'll bow to me, as all do." But inside her heart, Ellie whispered, "No, never." In a dark dungeon beneath the castle, the lion was chained. The witch wanted to make him her slave, to pull her heavy chariot, but the lion refused to eat the food she brought him. He grew thinner and weaker, yet his eyes still shone with quiet strength. When Ellie managed to visit him secretly, she stroked his mane and said, "Hold on, my friend. I'll find a way to free you." "I'm not afraid," he murmured softly. "Even if I die here, I'll die free." Those words gave Ellie courage. The Scarecrow and the Tin Woodman were far away, one scattered across the fields, the other rusting in a deep ravine. But Ellie thought of them often and prayed that somehow they might return. One morning, as the witch stood by her cauldron staring into the boiling green liquid, she muttered, "If I could take just one of those silver shoes, their power would be mine." Ellie overheard her. "You'll never have them," she said quietly. The witch's yellow eyes flashed with fury. "We shall see!" In a swift motion, she snatched up a long stick and struck the girl's arm. Ellie cried out, not in pain, but in anger. Before she could think, she seized a nearby bucket filled with water and threw it straight at the witch. The water splashed across the witch's face and robes. There was a horrible hiss, a sound like steam escaping from a kettle. The witch screamed, a scream so shrill that it shook the walls. Her skin began to melt like wax in the sun. Her eyes grew wide with terror. "Water! It's melting me! I'm melting!" Within seconds, she was gone. Only a dark puddle remained on the floor, and the smell of smoke hung in the air. Ellie stood frozen, the empty bucket trembling in her hands. "Oh, I didn't mean to," she whispered. But Totoshka barked joyfully, tail wagging as if to say, "It's over." The Wicked Witch of the West was dead. When the news spread, the witch's servants, the Winkies, rushed into the hall. For years they had been enslaved, forced to work under her cruel spells. Now they saw the melted remains and fell to their knees before Ellie. "You have freed us," they cried. "You are our savior." "I don't want to be anyone's ruler," Ellie said softly. "I just want my friends back." The Winkies bowed. "We will help you," they said. They gathered the Scarecrow's scattered straw from the fields and stuffed him anew until he stood tall again, smiling brightly. They found the Tin Woodman in the ravine, polished his body until it shone like silver, and oiled his joints so he could move once more. When the Tin Woodman saw Ellie, he dropped to one knee. "You did it," he said, his metallic voice trembling. "You destroyed her." "I didn't mean to," Ellie replied. "I only threw water." "Sometimes," said the Scarecrow wisely, "the simplest things hold the greatest power." The Winkies begged the Tin Woodman to stay and rule over them, for he was gentle and kind. But he shook his head. "Not yet. I must help my friends finish our journey." Ellie asked for one thing before they left: the golden cap, which the witch had used to command the winged monkeys. The Winkies brought it to her, bowing low. "It obeys whoever speaks the words written inside," they said, "but it may only be used 3 times. Ellie thanked them and placed the cap carefully in her basket. Then, using the first wish, she called the monkeys and said, "Take us back to the Emerald City." In a flash of wind and feathers, the monkeys lifted them high into the sky, carrying them over mountains and forests until the shining walls of the Emerald City rose before them once more. When they entered the city, the people greeted them with astonishment and joy. "The girl has returned," they whispered. and she has conquered the Wicked Witch." They went at once to the palace and demanded to see the wizard. "He must keep his promise," said the Scarecrow firmly. Again, they were told to enter one by one. Ellie went first. The great hall looked just as before, vast, green, and silent. But this time, something felt different. Totoshka suddenly ran ahead, barking furiously at a curtain in the corner. He tugged it with his teeth, and the curtain fell. Behind it stood a small, elderly man, bald on top and wearing round spectacles. He froze in terror. "Who are you?" Ellie cried. I am Oz," he stammered. "You," said the Scarecrow. "You're no wizard." The little man sighed and sank into a chair. "You're right. I'm not. I'm just an ordinary man from Omaha in your world. Long ago, I was a balloonist. One day, my balloon was caught in a storm and carried me far away. I landed here among people who had never seen such a thing. They thought I was a great sorcerer who came from the clouds, so I let them believe it. I built this city, but I have no real magic." Ellie stared at him, speechless. "But then, you can't send me home?" "I'm afraid not," he said softly. "But perhaps I can help in other ways." He turned to the Scarecrow. "You wanted a brain. I can't give you wisdom, but I can give you confidence." He filled the Scarecrow's head with a mixture of bran, pins, and needles. "Now you'll feel sharp and clever." To the Tin Woodman, he said, "You wanted a heart. I give you this." And he placed in the woodman's chest a small silken bag shaped like a heart, filled with red sawdust. "It will remind you to love and be kind." To the lion, he handed a small cup filled with a golden liquid. "Drink this. It's courage, or something like it. You'll feel it inside." The lion drank, his eyes shining. "I do feel it, but maybe I had it all along." Oz smiled. "Exactly." Ellie looked at them, happiness and sadness mixed in her heart. Her friends had all found what they wanted, but she was still far from home. Oz sighed. "Perhaps we can make a balloon like the one that brought me here. Together, we'll build it, and I'll take you back to Kansas myself." The days that followed were filled with work and excitement. The people of the Emerald City sewed strong silk cloth, while the Tin Woodman built a basket. When the balloon was ready, the wizard tied it to the palace tower. On the morning of departure, Ellie stood beside him, her eyes bright with hope. "Goodbye, my friends," she said. "I'll never forget you." "We'll miss you," said the Scarecrow, "but we're proud of you." Just as the balloon was about to rise, Totoshka barked and jumped out of Ellie's arms onto the ground. "Totoshka, come back!" she cried, leaping after him. But at that moment the ropes broke and the balloon lifted into the air. "Come back!" shouted Ellie. "I can't!" the wizard called down sadly. "Goodbye, my dear child, goodbye!" And then he was gone, floating higher and higher until he disappeared into the clouds. Ellie knelt on the ground, holding Totoshka close, tears in her eyes. "Now what will we do?" But the Scarecrow put a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Don't give up, Ellie. There's still one more witch, the Good Witch of the South. Maybe she knows the secret you seek." Ellie wiped her tears and nodded. "Then we'll go to her." And so, with hearts full of hope once more, they set out on the final journey. Part 5. The Good Witch of the South and the Journey Home. The Emerald City was peaceful once again. The people had chosen the Scarecrow as their new ruler, for he was wise and kind, and though his head was filled with straw, his thoughts were full of sense and fairness. But Ellie could not stay. Each night she stood on the palace balcony, staring at the distant horizon, thinking of her Aunt Em, Uncle Henry, and the little gray house on the endless Kansas plain. The Scarecrow noticed her sadness. "Ellie," he said gently, "I can't give you magic, but I can give you friendship. I'll come with you until you find the Good Witch." The Tin Woodman nodded. "And I'll go too. I couldn't bear to let you walk alone." The lion roared softly. "And I will protect you until the very end." Ellie's heart filled with warmth. "Then let's go together," she said. One last adventure. They left the Emerald City behind and headed south. The road this time was not paved with yellow bricks, but with white stones that gleamed under the sun. The air grew warmer, and the land became more beautiful with each mile. Fields of flowers stretched in every direction, and the trees were heavy with fruit. Yet the journey was not easy, for they faced new dangers along the way. One morning they reached a deep, wide river. There was no bridge, and the current was swift. "I can't swim," said the Scarecrow sadly. "If I fall in, I'll come apart." "I'll build a raft," said the Tin Woodman, and he worked all day, cutting down trees and tying them together with vines. When the raft was ready, they climbed aboard, Ellie and Totoshka in the middle, the Scarecrow holding on tightly, the Lion paddling with his strong paws. At first the river carried them gently, but soon the current grew stronger and the raft began to spin. "We're going too fast!" cried Ellie. "Hold on!" A sudden gust of wind pushed the raft toward the opposite shore, where the water was calmer. With great effort, the Lion leapt ashore, pulling the raft behind him. They were safe, soaked and tired, but safe. That night they built a fire and dried their clothes. Ellie looked up at the stars. "Every time I think we can't go any further," she said softly, "something helps us." "Maybe that something is you," said the Scarecrow. "You never give up." The next day, the travelers entered a strange country where all the people were made of china, delicate and beautiful, but fragile as glass. The houses, too, were made of porcelain, gleaming in the sunlight. The China people bowed politely as Ellie and her friends passed, but they begged, "Please walk carefully. One wrong step could break us forever." Ellie admired their beauty but understood their sadness. "I think," she said to her friends as they left the valley, "I'd rather be plain and alive than perfect and fragile." The Scarecrow nodded. "Wisely spoken, little lady." They continued south for many days, through fields of red poppies and golden wheat, until at last they saw a soft pink glow on the horizon. It shimmered like morning light, and Ellie felt her heart lift. "That must be the land of the Good Witch of the South," said the Lion. They arrived at a peaceful valley surrounded by hills that shone like rose quartz. Birds sang in the trees, and the air smelled of honey and wildflowers. At the center stood a beautiful marble palace with tall, graceful towers. Outside, in a garden filled with white lilies, sat a woman in a gown that shimmered like pearls. Her hair was silver as moonlight, and her eyes were kind. Ellie approached slowly and bowed. "Are you the Good Witch of the South?" The woman smiled. "Yes, my child. My name is Glinda. And who are you?" "I'm Ellie from Kansas," she said. "I've come such a long way. I only want to go home." Glinda's eyes softened. "You have been brave and faithful. Tell me of your journey." So Ellie told her everything about the cyclone, the road of yellow brick, the friend she had found, the wicked witch, and the wizard who turned out to be just a man. When she finished, Glinda nodded. "My dear," she said gently, "you've had the power to return home all along." Ellie blinked. "I have? But how?" "The silver shoes on your feet," said Glinda. "They hold the magic that can carry you anywhere in the world, even across the great desert that separates this land from yours." Ellie looked down at the shoes, shining softly in the sunlight. "I never knew." "Now you do," Glinda said. "Click your heels together 3 times and think of the place you love most, and you will be there." Ellie's heart leapt with hope, but then she turned to her friends, tears welling in her eyes. "Oh, but I don't want to leave you." The Scarecrow smiled. "Don't cry, dear Ellie. You've given us all more than we ever dreamed of." "You gave me a heart," said the Tin Woodman, his voice trembling. "And I'll remember you every time it beats." "You gave me courage," said the Lion. "I'll never be afraid again." Ellie hugged each of them tightly. "And you gave me friendship," she whispered. "That's something I'll never lose." Even Totoshka whimpered softly, sensing what was about to happen. Glinda touched Ellie's hair gently. "When you return home, the shoes will stay behind. Their magic is only for this land, but you won't need them where love already waits." Ellie nodded. She held Totoshka in her arms, closed her eyes, and whispered, "There's no place like home. There's no place like home. There's no place like home." Suddenly, the world spun around her. The air rushed past, and 1,000 lights danced before her eyes. She felt herself lifted high, higher than the clouds, then sinking slowly, gently, as if rocked by invisible hands. When she opened her eyes, she was standing in the familiar yard beside the small gray house in Kansas. The sun was shining, and the sky stretched endlessly above her. The storm had passed. Totoshka barked and ran in circles, his tail wagging furiously. Ellie looked down, The silver shoes were gone. Only her worn country shoes remained. At that moment, Aunt Em came running from the house, her apron flying. "Ellie, my darling girl, where have you been?" Ellie threw herself into her aunt's arms. "Oh, Aunt Em, I've been so far away, in a wonderful land, but I'm home now." Uncle Henry came from the barn, wiping his hands. "Well, bless my soul," he said, smiling through his tears. "It's good to have you back, child." Ellie looked around. The windmill, the dusty road, the endless fields, everything was just as before, yet she felt changed inside. The world seemed brighter, the sky bluer, and her heart lighter than ever. Totoshka barked again, and Ellie laughed. "Come on, Totoshka, let's go home." She took one last glance at the horizon. For a moment, she almost thought she saw the glimmer of a green light, the reflection of emerald towers far away, but then it faded, leaving only the golden sunlight of Kansas, and Ellie whispered softly, "It was real. I know it was." Epilogue. In the land of magic far away across the desert, life went on. The Scarecrow ruled the Emerald City with kindness and wit, loved by all who lived there. The Tin Woodman became the king of the Winkies, building golden palaces and protecting his people with a gentle hand. The Lion returned to his forest, where animals bowed to him not out of fear, but respect. And though each of them sometimes looked to the sky, dreaming of the little girl who had changed their lives, they knew she was safe, far away, in the land where she belonged. As for Ellie, she never forgot her friends or the lessons she learned. She knew that courage, love, and wisdom are not gifts to be granted by magic, but treasures found within one's own heart. And sometimes, on quiet evenings, when the wind whispered across the Kansas fields, she would close her eyes and almost hear the laughter of her companions. The rustle of straw, the soft clang of tin, the low, brave roar of a lion, echoing from a land beyond the rainbow.